Sorry about that, man.
Hey, no problem.
And as always, I forgot to close the door. Beautiful message. It's short, concise, but still. Oh, sorry. That was a butt dial. I just saw that I sent you a second.
An audio message, yeah, stirring your coffee.
Which probably had like fart sounds in it or something like that. Anyway, so yeah, that was very good. It's interesting. I read it, I replied to it, and then it disappeared. I wanted to see that there was a couple of other comments. What did people say?
I just had some likes on it. I didn't really get any comments on it. So, but yeah, it's funny how much can happen in a short period of time.
Yeah, especially with us. I mean, wow. How's your app coming?
Well, I didn't really work on it much at all yesterday. I talked to Joanne late in the afternoon, so I got the answers that I needed for some stuff. But I had to drive my daughter to work for 4:00. And,
all I'm hearing is excuses.
Yeah, and then last night I just watched sports. It was like an amazing night for sports. Did you watch any of the tennis?
Yes, I did watch some of that match.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny. There's something about it feels like I'm wasting time if I'm sitting in front of a TV.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a stupid level of guilt, because there's a time to work, there's a time to relax.
Yeah.
But that's just how it is.
Yeah.
But yesterday I was trying out a new feature. So I paid $75 to the guys who were developing the template for listings for a small customization. And I'm sure they have it in their back pocket. And I'm sure that this is this was a no-brainer for them. And they just making money off it. But good for them. Let me share my screen. Host disable participant screen sharing. Of course. What else is new?
That's a lie.
Fisher.
I didn't actually disable it. I just never enabled it.
No, last time I didn't have any problem.
Yeah, because I proactively enabled it. Okay, you're good to go now.
Oh, I see. So proactivity evaporated. All right, check this out. This is what I paid $75 for, but I'm very happy. No, man.
This is to somebody who does WordPress templates.
So they've created. WordPress is interesting. Oh man, traffic is light. 51 views yesterday, 8 views today. Gonna have to go back to the ads if I want to. So what they've done is they've created this template. Everything, how it looks, how it navigates, how it links categories to listings and whatnot, how you can create different attributes when you post a listing, all of that, and it's free. And then there are a couple of extensions that they pay for. And then they also have a service where they charge you if you want any customizations.
Okay.
I was able to get away with the free version. And WordPress is amazing for that, because there are multiple solutions that do listings. Real estate listings, automotive listings, like all sorts of stuff, like Craigslist if you want to build it. And some of them are free and they're garbage. Some of them are free, like this one, and it's excellent. Well, at least it's excellent for my needs. Some of them are paid, and they also can be garbage or great, depending on the support. Anyway, that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is I wanted to get. So I have a little thin. You see this little thin red line? That's a featured listing. It's always at the top.
Yeah.
I wanted this. I wanted to make sure that if somebody lands on this page, that they get the sense that this is always fresh. Right. That you get listings here with a regular frequency. And so for this little thing to appear on any new listing and stay there automatically. Like, see this one?
Yeah.
14 days. This is what I paid $75 for.
Wow. So it stays there. Can you change the settings?
Nope. Nope. Can't change the settings. I'm sure I can. I mean, if I go into the extension that was uploaded and then I look at the code, I can see where it stipulates, because what they do is they create kind of two layers, and one layer says, this is the original listing. I am a duplicate.
Yeah.
And the duplicate tracks the days from when the original was posted.
Okay.
So the duplicate is always like today on the date field.
Yeah.
And once it hits 14 days, it removes the new tag. So it's not a problem. If I go into that PHP file, wherever it is, I'll figure it out.
I just noticed it's covering some of your lettering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like here.
Yeah.
That's it's in my case, the thing is I want these new things.
Yeah. Cool. And how long did it take them to turn that around? Like
a night. I think they're somewhere in Europe, these guys.
Yeah.
So, and like, I don't know even if it was a night, because I'm sure that if somebody else has asked for it before, this is just like done.
Yeah. Cool.
But yeah, so at least I have this now.
Looking good.
Yeah. RBC got back to me. They seem to have liked me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but that's the only information I got. There's no offers or anything like that. And I told you that this is a contractor gig.
Yeah. There's no they just said, we like you, we'll get back to you, or
They're holding off on the offer.
oh.
Whatever that means.
Yeah. It's funny because I've seen a lot of stuff on LinkedIn recently.
Yep.
About it's basically like recruiters or whatever telling companies to get their shit together, because it's like you leave people hanging, you have these long processes, and then they get upset when they lose people, because it's like, well, we're going to wait and see. It always amazes me. People are not good at making decisions, and whether it's hiring people or buying a car or buying a house, it's like, I don't know. I'm not one of those people. I'm very good at making decisions. Like when we bought this house,
too good.
My wife and I, we went and looked at, our realtor sent us a bunch of listings. We went through them. We said, we want to look at these 5 houses. We went and looked at them, and we bought one of them. Like we basically looked at houses.
You're a seller's dream
for one day. So it's and when I used to hire people, it would be like, yeah, I'm going to interview these 3 people and I'm going to hire one of them. Like I know people who interview like 50 people and they still can't make a decision. It's like, just hire somebody. Like, I don't know.
Well, I can't agree with you 100% there, because sometimes I mean, I've been in a situation where you talk to people, so they said, I mean, this is where I push it back on the HR, because they don't do the pre-screening, because they send the person, and you know that awkward situation when it's an hour interview, and in the first 5 seconds, that no way in hell is this going forward.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, there have been situations where I had that feeling in the first 5 seconds, but the person redeemed themselves, and then I ended up hiring them.
Yeah.
That was once. Most of the other situations was like, no.
Yeah.
I had a person one time bring in an example of her work into the interview, and this was at RBC, and she was with another bank.
Yeah.
And she pulls out an example of her work, a PowerPoint presentation with the logo of the other bank.
Yeah.
And I was like, you do real. I didn't say this to her, but we never went ahead. But it's just like, you do realize that if anyone in the HR department or anyone on your team in your bank knew that you took essentially confidential materials
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that it's your work, it's confidential materials.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter they didn't look at them and examine them, but it's just,
Yeah. It's a breach of trust. Yeah.
yeah, it's the same thing as when your close friends asks you about another friend, and you say, well, he asked me or she asked me to keep it a secret. It's like, come on, you got to tell me.
Yeah.
But what you're asking me to do is to tell you a secret of another person, which means that if you tell me a secret, I will just as easily tell the other person your secret.
Yeah.
Do you want that to happen? No.
Yeah.
So why are you asking me to do that to the other guy?
Yeah.
But it's those simple things that in life, which sometimes.
Yeah. It kind of goes back to what, and maybe could be part of one of the podcasts. It's like, if the recruiting or HR people have done a decent job of vetting people,
yeah,
then like, to me, the problem is I think people are always looking for the perfect candidate. And I don't know if such a thing really exists out there.
No.
But you know, vacancies will sit there for 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, a year. And meanwhile, the work's not getting done. And you could have hired somebody who was an 8 out of 10 and developed them to be more of a closer to a 10 out of 10 in those 6 months or a year. I don't know. I'm just, maybe my mindset's always been like, if I don't hire somebody, I'm going to have to do all this work. So I'm hiring somebody.
Yeah. Well, then there's also a situation where you can have people start on contract.
Yeah.
There's I mean, yes, some people will say, oh no, I'll scoff at it. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Okay. But then there will be others who will be glad to do that. And it's a perfect process whereby you're not bound by any, like, you can always terminate the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
But back to your Thursday thought. That was great.
Yeah. You like
How long
that?
did it take you to write that script?
I don't know, 15, 20 minutes.
Man, you're good at that.
One was a one take
shot. Oh, nice.
One take, like, just sit down, write it, and then I don't know, record it. I think there might have been 3 or 4 places where I had to edit out because I stumbled. Like, I use that teleprompter app on my phone. It's great. And then the thing that takes the longest is just like adding in all the graphics and stuff. Then the subtitles take some time. Anyway, I mean, I've got the process down pretty good now.
Yep.
It takes me 5 minutes to set up my lighting and my microphone box, and now, because the air conditioning's running and stuff, I used to turn the air conditioner off and then I'd forget, and then I'd be dying later and I'd be like, well, I see air conditioning off. So yeah, I turn it off. So now I record it. I do all my editing, and then I export the audio only into Audacity. And then I run it through the noise reduction filter. And then I export the audio and put it back into Camtasia. And and it gets rid of that low hum or buzz of the air conditioner. So
That's
the only thing I got to figure out.
I have to say, that's very crafty.
The only thing that's still an issue for me, which I haven't figured out, is when I export the SRT file from my teleprompter app.
Yeah.
And then I upload it into Camtasia, any apostrophes or quotation marks are like Chinese symbols. Like, there's some conversion process. I actually sent the teleprompter app company a complaint, not a complaint, but a support ticket saying it's not exporting properly, but it actually ends up, it's the importing issue with Camtasia, not with the teleprompter app. So somewhere there's a setting that is changing that punctuation into these other characters. And every time I do a video, I'm like, I got to figure out how to solve for this. And then I just go, yeah, I'll get to it later. And then I never get around to doing it. But that's the pain in the ass, that part. But yeah, it was, I don't know. It's funny when I look back, it's, I don't know. And it was kind of spontaneous the way I ended it, was saying, like, my only regret is they didn't restructure me 3 years ago.
No, that's not true.
No, I know.
There's always like all of I think to myself that all of life's experiences, good or bad, are there for a reason.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny. I was having a conversation with my son about this a couple of weeks ago because we were driving up to my brother's in Port Colborne, which is like, an hour and a half, 2 hours away, depending on traffic. And we were talking about that because there's that old story. I don't know what the origin of it is, but it's like the farmer whose horse runs away and all the neighbors say, "Oh, that's terrible." And he's like, we'll see. And then the horse comes back and he brings like 2 or 3 other horses with him from and everyone's like, "Oh, you're so lucky. Now you have 3 horses." He's like, "Well, yeah, we'll see." And then his son is training the horses and falls and breaks his leg. And they say, "Oh, that's so terrible. Your son broke his leg." And he goes, "Yeah, we'll see." And then they do a conscription for the army and they can't take his son because he has a broken leg. And they're saying, "Oh, you're so lucky. Your son broke his leg because now he won't go die in the war." And he's like, "Yeah, we'll see." But it's like, anyway, the example I was sharing with my brother or my son was my sister had cancer when she was 15
Mm-hmm.
and had to have a hysterectomy. So she couldn't have kids. But she survived the whole thing and has been cancer free ever since. But the long story short is she ended up adopting her son. So it's like, if she never had cancer and never had to have a hysterectomy, she never would have adopted Devin and he wouldn't have been part of our family. So it's like, even that is an example of the thing that seemingly at the time is the worst thing that could ever happen to you ends up being the best thing that ever happened to you.
That's true. That's true. It's deep. Are we recording this?
We are recording this.
Well, this can be an off the cuff episode.
There you go. Yeah. Well, it's it's interesting when things. It's the old saying. It's always darkest before the dawn, right? Like it's
But that looks. You know what? It's funny that you bring that up.
Yeah.
And maybe this is going to be one of those off-the-cuff rambles about life's choices. Let's think about it. Let's think about the title because this is good. But you know what? With that saying, it's always darkest before the dawn. Only looks at one side of the coin. It kind of tries to lift your spirits when you're down on your luck or you're feeling bad, and you say, "Yeah, good days will come."
Yeah.
Everyone forgets the thing that when you're feeling great and you're riding the high, it will turn on you.
Yeah.
It will change. And no one wants to recognize that.
Yeah.
But everything you said is absolutely true. I remember when back in 2008, when maple leaf and listeriosis outbreak caused a massive the company was basically turned upside down.
Yeah.
It brought to the fore so many problems, logistical and whatnot in the company. It was a tough time. I mean, people were being let go.
That when a bunch of people died, didn't they?
Yep.
I think they're pretty lucky they survived that.
Yeah. So it was a very, very tough time. But having said that, for me personally, had I not gone through that tough time, had I not seen what was going on and how people felt, might not have been able to kind of coach or mentor people through other tough times when people begin to freak out. You look at this and saying, like, the way you feel is justified, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because in the stuff that Jamie teaches, he talks a lot about our innate resilience and our evolution as a species. Mm-hmm. That we're built for reality. We can handle anything, basically. Yeah. And so you don't when you really believe that you have this ability to be resilient and to handle anything, then you don't have to have any fear, right? Mm-hmm. Like you don't have to worry about what it was, because he often tells people when he's coaching them, it's like, the problem isn't that this could happen, because it certainly could happen. The problem is you don't think you can handle it, but the truth is you can handle it.
Yeah.
And so it's you know, it's a different spin on the whole thing.
Yeah, good stuff.
Anyway, it's funny because it all started with you just saying that, you know, they like you, but they're holding off on an offer right now. It's like, well, then they didn't like you that much. But it's kind of it just frustrating when they're like, yeah, they like you, but we're going to see if we have something better.
That, you know what, that's true. But again, if we're being objective, if let's say we're being coaches,
yeah,
let's look at this from an unbiased perspective.
Sure.
Is what you said true? Maybe not. I mean, I worked at that bank, and I know that the red tape in the bank is massive. Yeah. And maybe the manager has made the decision, but he needs a sign off from his manager.
Yeah.
Well, there are a multitude of reasons, and one of them definitely is what you said.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not saying it very likely could be a systemic issue, like the process and what. Like, I'll give you an example. At my wife's work, they do all their interview by panel, like with a panel of people.
Yep. And
then they have to do their scoring and all this stuff. And I don't know. I've heard lots of stories where they hire the person who has the best scores, even though it's not the person, when they all talk to each other, that everyone wants to hire.
What?
Yeah, it's because there's the scores, and then there's the human element to it, right? I don't know. And I'm not saying they end up with bad hires, because, you know, it's probably, you know, splitting hairs in some ways.
Yep.
But there are times when it's like, you know, we've interviewed Greg and Vadim, and you know, Greg, we all like Greg better, but Vadim scored higher on all our, when we tally up all the things. So we're just going to hire Vadim, even though, and everyone's like, really? We thought we'd hire Greg. Yeah, but he didn't score as high. Okay, well, I guess, I don't know. Like, and
in the end, it turns out that the scores rule the day,
yeah,
because when they hired Vadim, they found out how good of a guy he is, and Greg is a massive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually, that's
to me, it's just bizarre.
It is bizarre. It is indeed bizarre.
But I mean, and this is, I don't know, I'm open-minded, so I'm open to different ideas, because there's another guy I know who they did, you know, this whole notion of unconscious bias, right?
Yes. And
so they would do like a blind process, like they didn't even know who the person was. Mm-hmm. Anything. It was just like on paper. It was like, you know, they didn't know anything about them, sex, age, you know, all these things, because it's like, you know, we're going to be completely unbiased and just go by the paper. And I don't know how they do that in the interview, because obviously when you talk to somebody, you can tell whether they're male or female. You can tell by looking at their experience, relatively how old or young they are. Mm-hmm. I mean, so, you know, I don't know if you're truly, you know, anyone with half a brain can figure out a lot of stuff without having to. So I don't know how good you are at eliminating your unconscious bias, but I don't know. I
actually, you know what? It's an interesting. It's also an interesting conversation. I mean, we're not doing this as a podcast, but we should have really.
Yeah.
Because think about it this way. I mean, the culture nowadays is all about equality, equity, and elimination of bias. Yeah. And that is being taken to the utmost extreme. The reason that we have biases, and everyone has biases, everyone who claims they do not are lying. It's just the way humans are wired.
Yeah.
So recognition of your species, blah, blah, blah. It's ingrained. It's just, it's part of the fight or flight system.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So you have those, but those are also the things that make a team tick. Now, I would completely uphold the idea that you can't penalize a person or prevent a person from advancing, being given a job because of something that they're not.
Yeah.
Be it race, gender, whatever. Now that's just preposterous. But
Yeah.
at the same time, there's nothing wrong with people liking somebody and not liking somebody else.
Yeah.
It's just the way it works. And I do believe that I'll give you an example without being. So I wanted to do women in data science project in one of the companies.
Yeah.
And it was really tough. And you know why? Because there are fewer women in the world of like technology and data science specifically.
Yeah.
Like if you think of Pressima,
Yeah.
You had Kasha and Shushmita.
Yeah.
And the rest of the team, all of the guys who sat in Chicago were all men.
Yeah.
Now it begs the question in this day and age, would you not hire Alvin and big despite the fact that he was good, brilliant at what he did,
Yeah.
and forego him in place to get to that wonderful state of diversity where percentages all line up?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. One, Alvin doesn't need to be penalized for being a man.
Yeah.
And so it's funny how dynamics can be always exaggerated to be taken over the top.
Yeah.
And common sense just goes out the window.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a balance to be struck for sure. I mean, it's funny because the biases or whatever you want to call them, like it's positioned as such a negative thing, but really as a species, we would not survive if we had not had intuition and unconscious abilities to make decisions. Like the trusting your instincts and trusting your gut. I mean, I guess it's a balance. I mean, when you see sexism or ageism or racism, it's obvious, and should be called out and so on.
Correct.
But when you're acting, I don't know, from an unbiased perspective, the chips just fall where they may, and you hire people based on merit.
That's exactly.
And that's the way it should be.
Yeah, but then like I said, in the current environment, everyone thinks not about that, but more about virtue signaling.
Yeah, it's funny though. Like when you mentioned Pressima, I mean, I know it was a topic of conversation frequently about at senior levels.
Yeah,
that it was like the boys' club.
Yeah.
Which and there's no denying it. I mean, you just have to look at the leadership group and say, yeah, it is what it is. But at other levels of the company, my experience had been it was quite diverse, both men and women,
culturally,
orientation, ethnicity. Like it was very balanced.
But that's kind of the argument that people who want to. I don't want to paint it as a negative light, because there's certainly room for standing up for rights and kind of promoting whatever you want to promote. But the point people make is, okay, so if it's so diverse at the lower levels, why is it the boys' club at the top?
Yeah.
I have no answer for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of the reason is turnover, right? Like at lower levels, there's more opportunities with a higher frequency.
Yeah.
I mean, in the last, in 10 years, not one of those senior positions changed.
That's true.
So, there was no opportunity, but certainly if there was an opportunity, is that the time to do it? I mean, when I worked at Loblaws back in whatever, the late 90s, early 2000s, I think they had the first female executive at that time. Her name was Violet Conkle. She ran Eastern Canada. And that was a big kind of, when she got that position, they made a big deal out of it. And I think she left shortly after that, and went was a big shot at Walmart. But I mean, then, you fast forward, whatever, 10, 15 years later, and Sarah Davies was the president and stuff. So, I mean, it's, and I mean, we had senior people like Mary Del Monte. I don't know. There was a lot of female leadership, although I say a lot, but I'm comparing a lot versus zero. It certainly wasn't a lot compared to how many male leaders there were. That's for sure.
Well, it's
funny though, like as the father of a daughter, I mean, I believe that, the world is at her disposal, right? Like she can be anything she wants to be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, some of that is the privileges of being in this part of the world.
Well, you know what? It's actually very interesting because on the one hand side, definitely human rights, equity, that's all are noble causes.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the whole world doesn't live like that.
Yeah.
Not by any stretch.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that the other part of the worlds are bad or inherently, they just live, that their microcosm of society is very, very different.
Yeah.
And there's an argument to be made that you need to go out and change everything for the better, but this better is defined by a group of people, not by the people that are living the way they are.
Yeah. I think of it kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? It's like in Western society, food and shelter and basic necessities of life is kind of a given, right? Like we're talking about like, Wi-Fi is a human right. I mean, that's,
that's taking it a bit too far.
Well, no, but that's just an example. It's just an example of how far we've come in terms of, we don't even think about all these other things because they're just a given.
Yeah, that's true.
So we can work on the top of the triangle, whereas other parts of the world, basic rights and freedoms and healthcare, food, shelter, are not as given as they are here.
But it's interesting. It's interesting you bring the example of your daughter, because I also look at my son and I'm thinking to myself, well, you have a son as well. Yeah. It's like, you're a white guy. You're seen as the epitome of everything that's bad with this world.
Yeah.
If you listen to woke culture, if you're a white guy, you're misogynistic. If you're a white guy, you're automatically you're racist.
Mm-hmm.
That's in the States. That's what critical race theory teaches.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking to myself, is like, are you de facto now at a disadvantage?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, well, but why would any child? I mean, let's talk about Canada specifically. Yeah. Why would any child of any parent feel themselves as being at a less of an advantage to somebody else? And then we go back to merit. For some reason, merit is being thrown out the window. If you listen to the conversations about race, gender, sexual orientation, merit doesn't come into the picture. It's about having a representation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, I think, the argument is that a big part of the equation of merit is opportunity. Yeah. Mm-hmm. and because of systemic issues, whatever, that my kid has an advantage over other kids.
Mm-hmm.
So the merit isn't warranted because the merit is more of a function of the systemic advantages that he has versus others. I think that's the argument. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't subscribe to the argument at all.
No, it's interesting because sometimes you get down into this hole, and I have an innate ability to see the other person's point of view. And what you said right now, like, I mean, yeah, that makes sense. I understand where you're coming from. And the only solution I see to like this endless quarrel between the different camps, which truthfully is ripping society apart, and it's essentially providing a perfect lines of division.
Yeah.
So you're either on this side, on the other side, and then there's this argument, then there's this argument, then there's not. So it's fractioning the way that people think, and the only real solution to this is rewind back the clock. If we're talking about race, put every race on their continent, in their part of the world, without before the whole slavery aspect, the whole airplanes and whatnot, and migration. Because if you think about it, back, like way back in the day, rewind it back to, like, I don't know, 1700s, every single country was a monocultural society. It was.
Yeah.
But then the folks from the UK and Spain went to the US, and the whole shit started flying apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be a solution, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, we can't go back. We can only go forward. And I mean, I don't dismiss that there aren't things to improve on it. And my position on it is, okay, and this goes back to the whole hierarchy of needs thing, right? Like, I look at it from the standpoint of, look how fortunate we are that we can have these debates, we can have this discussion, we can address these issues, because everything else is already taken care of. And I would argue that we're further along the path of getting to where we want to be than we ever have been in the history of the world. So I'm not saying, discrimination, racism, privilege, I'm not saying any of that stuff doesn't exist. It certainly does, but it exists less so today than it did yesterday, a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and so on. So
that's
so we're making progress. Are we making progress fast enough? I don't know. Probably not, but progress is still progress.
That's fair. I mean, there's no way of denying what you just said. That is true. And I mean, I guess there will always be causes that people are going to take very hard positions on, and they will be blowing it out of proportion and just blah 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 blah.
I think that fundamentally, and I don't know, this just occurred to me, but it's like a lot of the conflict stems from a scarcity mentality, right? That in order for you to have something, it means I have to give something up. Where the pie is limited. There's only so much to go around, and that so everyone has to fight for their share of the pie. Versus looking at things from an abundance mentality, which is there's enough for everybody. You want a bigger piece of pie? Okay, we'll just get a bigger pie. Like, we don't have to split things up in that way. So I don't know. I mean, I think fundamentally there's a lot of the media and the government in an effort to maintain power fans the flames of all this stuff and makes it seem so much worse than it actually is to the average person.
Biden conqueror never goes out of style.
Yeah, and it's appalling when you really think about it. Anyway, this is a deep conversation today.
I wish you couldn't. Yeah. Anyway, this was a fun Friday chat.
It was indeed. It's my dad's birthday today, actually.
You gonna go see him?
No, he's coming over on Sunday.
Okay.
So we're having my siblings and stuff over on Sunday for a little barbecue.
Yeah. Well, anyway, my friend, have a good one, and I'll talk to you Monday. So
All right,
we'll be doing the episode, right?
Yeah, Monday morning we're doing I'll be making some notes over the weekend.
Yeah, so will I.
All right, enjoy the weekend.
Bye-bye.
Take care.